the sky did not begin as blue. It began as a soft hush, a breath held between sleeping clouds and the slow stir of dreams. In this place, color was not seen, it was felt, humming gently through the air like the vibration of forgotten lullabies. You did not remember arriving. You simply were, standing barefoot on the edge of a floating path woven from strands of golden dusk. The wind carried no chill, only a faint sense of welcome, like being remembered by something older than time. Below you, there was no earth, only a sea of mist shifting lazily with every passing thought. Shapes moved beneath the surface, memories, maybe, or the sighs of sleeping birds. The path curved ahead, winding between pillars of translucent crystal that chimed with each of your steps. Each note was a different shade of light, soft rose, dusky lavender, pale aquamarine. As you walked, the sky above you changed, not rapidly, but slowly, like the turning of a page that had waited forever to be read. Threads of saffron light unraveled from the clouds, stretching into music that you could feel along your skin. The notes formed bridges and arches, ribbons of pure tone that hung in the air like floating brushstrokes. A small creature scampered beside you, something between a rabbit and a shadow, with ears like curled petals and eyes that glowed a gentle violet. It didn't speak, but it hummed as it moved, a soft accompaniment to the ever-changing sky. When you reached out your hand, it paused, sniffed your fingers, and nestled close, weightless and warm. The air thickened with scent, not of flowers, but of old books, rain on dry leaves, and the memory of laughing in a place you'd never been. You followed the path through a veil of drifting shimmer, like walking through a music box paused in motion. Beyond it, the sky opened wider, revealing islands of clouds suspended by threads of song. Each island pulsed with its own rhythm, glowing softly from within, as though lit by a heartbeat. You stepped onto one. It welcomed you, adjusting slightly to hold your weight, and exhaled a sigh of lavender wind. A voice, not quite a voice, but the suggestion of one, spoke within the rustling air. "Traveler," it said, "you've come to the place where the sky sings in color. Stay as long as you like. The path waits only when you wish it to." You sat, cross-legged, on a bed of feathered moss that rippled like silk. The shadow creature curled beside you, purring a note that painted a ring of pale blue around your feet. Overhead, the clouds danced in slow spirals, forming the shape of something familiar and kind. You couldn't name it, but it made you feel safe. A soft bell rang far in the distance, and the sound unfurled across the sky like a ribbon unrolling. Everywhere it touched, the light shifted, becoming warmer, deeper, like the first blush of twilight. You felt your thoughts dissolving, not lost, just unneeded here. There was nothing to remember, nothing to solve. Just this slow unraveling, this quiet being. You lay back and let the sky cradle you. The moss beneath you softened further, reshaping itself with the ease of clouds responding to a dream. Overhead, colors rippled like silk underwater. Amber melting into celadone, then into the hush of early plum. The music of the sky grew softer, as if humming you into stillness. The air held the warmth of distant candlelight, without source or flame, just the idea of comfort made real. The shadow creature nestled into the crook of your arm, weightless as a sigh, and for a moment, you imagined it had always been there, following you from one dream to the next. time moved differently here. It didn't pass. It floated. Somewhere in the distance, a sound rose, not music, but the memory of laughter in a garden at dusk. You sat up and found a new path curling away from the edge of your cloud island, one made of glassy petals that shimmered beneath your bare feet. Each step echoed gently, but not into silence, into color. When your foot met the path, a soft note played and the air shifted hue, responding with a glowing wave of sound. You understood then that the path was listening. It heard your presence and answered in melody. The sky, once smooth like painted silk, now showed delicate patterns etched across its surface, spirals, glyphs, and faint waves that pulsed like a heart too vast to see. The air whispered, "All here sings because you are here to hear it." You nodded without needing to speak. Words would have felt heavy in a place so delicate. The next island appeared as a slowly rotating spiral, its edges dripping with long strands of silver rain that never touched the ground. You stepped into it and passed through the curtain. The drops weren't wet. They were memories, tiny flashes of something you almost recalled. A warm hand. A song by a window. A paper lantern rising. They brushed past your skin like the breath of someone you missed but couldn't name. On the island's surface, glowing trees rose in slow spirals, their branches curling like smoke. The leaves hummed softly, and as you passed beneath them, their tones merged into harmonies that matched the rhythm of your breath. A creature floated down from one of the trees, translucent and shaped like a teardrop of light. It hovered in front of you, pulsing with soft pink, then drifted forward, inviting you to follow. You moved in sync with it, down a path carved through grass that sparkled like stardust. Around you, the world faded into the glow of quiet things. There were no edges, no boundaries, just a soft sense of motion and presence. The shadow creature followed, still silent, still glowing, still with you. The floating light led you to a clearing where a great basin of still water reflected not the sky, but your thoughts, slow, unwinding, and dreamlike. When you gazed into it, the water shimmered and lifted into the air, taking shape as a stairway spiraling upward into the sky's glowing folds. The voice returned, this time clearer. The sky is not above you. It is within. And you have only begun to remember the way. You stepped forward. The shadow creature followed. The light waited. And the colors sang, welcoming you back into yourself. The stairway curled upward like a ribbon unfurling in slow motion, each step pulsing with a quiet tone that echoed gently behind you. The air thinned not with altitude but with wonder, as if climbing upward meant letting go of things no longer needed. With every step, colors drifted closer, brushing past your skin like silk scarves soaked in sunlight. The light here wasn't bright, nor dim, it was simply right, like the soft glow of a dream recalled just before waking. Above you, the sky folded inward, layers of painted sound forming a tunnel of shifting hues. When you reached the top, the staircase melted into a soft landing, a platform that floated in a place without direction. Up and down no longer mattered. Here, there was only around, an ever-turning carousel of moments suspended in color and silence. The light creature hovered near, its form trembling with gentle pink and honey gold, then merged softly into the air, becoming a part of the song itself. The shadow creature stayed beside you, ever present, ever still. You stepped forward, though there was no true direction, and the world rippled in response. The floor beneath your feet took on the texture of brushed velvet and driftwood, grounding yet weightless. Ahead, structures began to form, not buildings, but the idea of them. Soft silhouettes shaped from music and scent. A domed hall appeared first, its surface shimmering like dew at dawn. As you approached, the notes in the air shifted again, becoming chords, then melodies, then layers of lullabies with no beginning or end. Inside, there were no walls, only frames of golden sound holding space where echoes lived. Figures moved gently within, people, or something like them, shaped from watercolor and starlight. They turned to you without faces, yet you felt their eyes, warm and knowing. They bowed slightly, welcoming your presence. One reached out a hand woven from light and memory, offering a single glowing thread. You took it without fear. The thread pulsed with the softness of old comfort and unspoken kindness. As you held it, a vision bloomed around you, a small room floating above an ocean of clouds, a chair beside a window that opened to a sky of lilac waves. It was your memory, or maybe it belonged to someone you used to be. You sat in the memory room as it formed gently around you, carried by nothing and everything. The shadow creature curled beside the chair, watching with half-lidded eyes. A book appeared on your lap, its cover blank, its pages filled with moving color, like stained glass melted into time. You flipped through it slowly, each page humming softly in your hands. The pictures did not stay still. They showed landscapes you had never seen but somehow knew. A field of sleeping clocks, a river made from laughter, a garden of wind-blown dreams. As you turned the last page, the room dissolved, flowing outward like breath on a cold window. You stood again within the domed hall, the glowing figures now gathered around in a slow dance. Their movements traced shapes in the air, patterns that left soft trails of glowing wind. One motioned to the ceiling of the hall, and you looked up to see a spiral of stardust forming a portal, or a window, or a doorway to the next part of the sky. When you are ready, the voice murmured from somewhere between the echoes, the sky will open again. You stepped forward and the portal opened like a flower blooming from the inside out. You passed through the spiral of stardust and emerged into a vast expanse where the sky pulsed like a living canvas. Here, the colors were slower, deeper, more resonant, tones that sang low in your bones and wrapped gently around your thoughts. Shapes drifted overhead like enormous brushstrokes, whales made of mist, jellyfish woven from wind, and birds whose wings shimmered in tones rather than feathers. They moved as though carried by a music too large to hear all at once. The air was soft and forgiving, and the ground beneath your feet reshaped itself with every step. It felt like walking on memory, each step echoing across time. The path ahead formed as you moved, responding to your presence, glowing with subtle warmth like sunlight remembered through a closed window. You noticed small blooms rising along the edges of the trail, flowers shaped like miniature harps, their petals vibrating with soft notes that added gently to the symphony of the sky. As you brushed past them, they bent toward you, releasing tiny motes of light that drifted upward and dissolved into scent. You felt a story unfolding inside you, not one of conflict or urgency, but of soft discovery. The shadow creature now glowed faintly with the same colors as the sky, as if it had begun to absorb the dream around you. Its eyes, still calm and knowing, blinked slowly, keeping pace with your breath. A structure came into view, rising ahead from a sea of floating pollen and sound. It was a tower, but not built, it had grown. Each level was a spiral of melody, each surface textured with lullabies woven into form. It shimmered in hues of indigo and coral, changing with every breath of the wind. At the tower's base, a figure waited, not quite human, not quite light. They were wrapped in robes that flowed like slow rain, and their face was hidden behind a mask of glass that reflected your own expression back at you. They raised a hand in greeting, and without words, the message came through: "Welcome, Dreamwalker. The tower sings your name." You stepped into its base and felt the tone change, growing deeper, more inward. Each floor you ascended was a room of memory you didn't know you'd forgotten. One room was filled with clocks that didn't tick, only breathed, their hands moving in gentle arcs that aligned with the rhythm of your heart. Another room was a corridor of mirrors that reflected not your body but the shapes of your thoughts, gentle spirals, soft spirals, all turning outward. You passed through a room filled with feathers suspended midair, floating as though held in place by a dream that had not yet exhaled. The silence in this space was not empty. It was full of waiting, full of intention. At the top of the tower, the wind opened like a door. The rooftop was flat and endless, a garden of chimes grown from the floor, each one swaying to a sound only they could hear. When you stepped among them, they rang, not loudly, but in soft pulses, like water dripping into a still pool. Each chime called forth a memory from the sky itself. The clouds parted above, and from their depths fell glowing threads of color and tone, weaving a gentle dome around the rooftop. The figure in the mask joined you again, their hand extended. You took it, and for a moment, everything else faded. There was only sound and light, and the deep hum of something ancient and kind moving through the sky, as if you were inside the breath of a sleeping world. The masked figure let go of your hand, but the warmth lingered like the final note of a lullaby. The dome of sound and color slowly lifted, melting back into the sky as though it had only paused to greet you. The chimes swayed in farewell as you turned toward a new path, one that extended not from the tower, but downward, into the sky itself. A staircase of light descended into a calm ocean of cloud, glowing with soft greens and sleepy gold. You felt no fear, only the pull of stillness calling you deeper into dream. With each step down, the sounds around you shifted to slower rhythms. The chimes above faded into echoes, replaced by the low pulse of distant waves breaking in reverse. The shadow creature followed close, now glowing faintly with hues you couldn't name, colors that felt like resting eyes and distant stars. The staircase opened onto a shore unlike any other, a coastline made of folded sky and soft bells. The sand was pale blue and cool under your feet, each grain shaped like a thought waiting to be remembered. The sea rolled in gently, not with water but with liquid sound, waves of shimmering tone that lapped at the shore in slow, rhythmic breath. Across the water floated small islands made of slumbering light. They moved slowly, as though drifting through a dream too deep to wake from. The sky above was a quiet dome of violet and gold, gently turning in slow spirals. A boat waited for you at the edge of the sea, not one you stepped into, but one you became part of. The moment you placed a hand on its surface, it dissolved into color, surrounding you, lifting you effortlessly onto the sound sea. You were no longer walking, only drifting. The shadow creature rested beside you, curled like a comma in the story of your dream. As you drifted, the sea sang around you, whispering soft names you didn't recognize but felt in your chest. They were names of skies that no longer existed, of clouds that once held dreams for entire worlds. Above you, small stars blinked into being, close enough to touch. Each one held a quiet voice, humming in your direction, not as a song but as a question. Who are you when you sleep? The question didn't require an answer. It folded into you, became part of you, melted into your breath. As your boat glided farther across the sound sea, you saw figures on distant islands waving slow, deliberate gestures. They welcomed you without needing you to land. Their greetings were offerings of peace, not requests. The sea guided you forward. Eventually, the islands thinned, the sea calmed further, and the air grew heavier with hush. You felt yourself slowing, stretching, unraveling gently at the edges. It was not sleep. It was something deeper. Something quieter. A bell chimed in the distance, low, round, and tender. The boat dissolved again beneath you, placing your feet softly on a path made from its own sound. You stepped forward, feeling the music become ground once more. Ahead, the sky parted, revealing a great archway made of woven dawnlight. You passed beneath it without hesitation, the air shifting with your presence, as if the sky itself exhaled your name in return. Beyond the archway, the world softened again. The sky stretched low, like a blanket pulled close, and the light folded gently around your shoulders. The path beneath your feet became a stream of warm mist, curling softly around your ankles as you moved. It carried no urgency, only invitation, as though every step were a conversation with the air. Around you, the landscape shimmered into being, not fixed, but drifting, like memories retold in different voices. Floating trees with glass leaves hovered on islands of fog, and their branches moved in slow spirals, etching quiet spirals through the clouds. Each time a leaf dropped, it sang a single note that echoed across the horizon, and from those echoes, shapes began to form, animals made of candlelight, houses shaped from old lullabies, floating gardens that swayed in time with the heartbeat of the sky. The shadow creature trotted ahead for a moment, then turned and waited for you, as if it remembered this place and wanted to see it through your eyes. You stepped into a clearing where the sky dipped low enough to touch. A canopy of pale green light hovered just above your head, rippling gently when you moved beneath it. In the center of the clearing, a table waited, round, carved from something soft as thought, and glowing faintly with light that changed depending on how you felt. You sat without thinking, and as you did, chairs shimmered into existence around the table. Soft figures filled them, not people, not quite, but presences shaped from comfort and scent. One smelled like rain on linen. Another like the first breath of morning. They nodded to you, slowly, as if remembering something about you that you hadn't yet recalled. One figure leaned forward and placed a small object on the table. It looked like a seashell, but when you leaned closer, you heard wind passing through it, not the wind of the world, but the wind of dreams long past. The figure gestured for you to take it, and you did. Holding it to your ear, the sound became words. Not spoken aloud, but felt in the bones of your mind. The sky remembers all who listen. And you have listened well. You closed your eyes and let the sound sink deeper. A new memory emerged, not one you'd lived, but one that welcomed you anyway. A garden of soft moons hanging from vines, a bridge made of birdsong, a room where your thoughts painted the walls. You opened your eyes, and the table and its guests faded softly into the mist, leaving behind only the seashell, still humming faintly in your hand. You tucked it away, not in a pocket but somewhere deeper, somewhere that traveled with you regardless of place. The shadow creature circled you once, then led you onward, down a slope of light that curved like the edge of a sleepy smile. As you descended, the sky above cracked open. Not violently, but like the gentle parting of curtains in a sunlit room. Through the opening came a waterfall made of time. It poured slowly, each droplet holding a moment, a glance, a whisper, a silence shared. You stepped beneath it and let it fall across your shoulders, soaking you in warmth and stillness. Nothing about you changed, and yet everything softened. Even your name, whatever it was here, seemed to dissolve into the sound of the falling time. On the far side of the waterfall, the world grew quieter. The colors dimmed, not from fading, but from rest. You were deeper now, deeper into the sky, deeper into the song, deeper into the dream of yourself. The ground beneath your feet now felt like memory woven into warmth. Each step whispered back to you, as if the sky itself remembered every moment you had passed through. Ahead, a low hill rose from the mist, covered in soft moss that shimmered with silver dew. You walked slowly, letting the stillness guide you. At the top of the hill was a single tree, not tall, not grand, but deeply familiar. Its branches were shaped like questions gently reaching into the sky, and from them hung lanterns of every color you'd ever dreamed of. They swayed without wind, glowing in rhythm with the quiet inside your chest. You reached up and touched one. It flickered softly, then began to play a sound you hadn't realized you missed, a whisper of someone singing far away, the tune more feeling than melody. As it played, your breath slowed, and your shoulders dropped further into peace. The shadow creature curled beneath the tree, watching the lanterns with soft, steady eyes. Around you, the sky was no longer overhead but everywhere, like a song played in a room with no walls. You sat down beneath the tree, letting the moss welcome your weight. It adjusted beneath you like a memory remembered at the perfect moment. From the tree's trunk, a pattern began to glow, soft, spiraling lines like the unfurling of thought. They stretched outward, connecting to the lanterns, then out across the hill and down into the land beyond. It was as if the tree was dreaming too, and you were part of its dream. A soft bell rang again, distant but close enough to touch. The sound rolled over the hill like a wave of velvet and left the air shimmering. From that shimmer, figures emerged. They were made of the sky's memory, shaped from folded light and laughter once heard beneath a full moon. They didn't speak. They sat with you beneath the lanterns, forming a circle, their presence both new and ancient. Together, you watched the sky deepen in color, from soft amber to plum dark blue. The stars above now moved in slow dances, spiraling in loops that never crossed, never ended. One of the figures placed their hand gently on the moss, and from that touch, a small garden grew, flowers made of sound, leaves like glowing ink, stems that curled toward your heartbeat. The garden spread around you slowly, like paint bleeding through paper. Every bloom released a scent of something long lost and suddenly found. You closed your eyes. When you opened them again, the figures were gone, but their warmth remained. The tree hummed gently above you, the lanterns still swaying in their own dream. You stood and looked outward. The hill was now surrounded by paths, more than you could count, each one made from a different kind of quiet. One path was woven from candlelight. Another from the hush of snow falling. One shimmered with the colors of memories you hadn't lived but still recognized. The shadow creature stood and looked at you, as if asking without asking, which quiet do you need next? You chose the path that felt like exhaling. As you stepped onto it, the moss bowed slightly beneath your feet, and the lanterns above blinked once, slowly, as though nodding in farewell. You walked forward, deeper into the soft night, deeper into the sky that knew your name without sound. The path you had chosen curved softly downward, spiraling through folds of mist that moved aside just for you. With each step, the hush grew thicker, not heavy, but warm, like a weighted blanket made from forgotten lullabies. The air tasted faintly of vanilla and cool stone, and somewhere nearby, a slow heartbeat echoed, not your own, but the pulse of the dream itself. Shapes began to form along the sides of the path. Not objects, exactly, but silhouettes of places and moments, doors with no buildings, windows hung midair, staircases curling up into clouds. They hovered there quietly, waiting for no one, simply existing as fragments of stillness. One window caught your eye, framed in gold and humming gently. You stepped closer, and the glass shimmered. Inside, you saw a quiet room filled with soft pillows and books that glowed from within. A fireplace flickered with blue flame, and a cat made of shadows and stars blinked up at you before curling into a tighter ball. The room felt like a place you once dreamed about as a child, or perhaps would dream of someday in the future. You didn't step through the window, but you didn't need to. Just seeing it filled a space within you that had forgotten it was hollow. You continued on. The mist thinned, and ahead you saw a bridge stretching across a canyon of still air. The bridge was made of sound woven into thread, glowing softly with every step it remembered. You walked across it slowly, the tones beneath your feet responding with soft harmonies, as if singing you forward. Below, there was no bottom, just layers of folded skies, gently breathing. At the center of the bridge, a pause. A small table had appeared, holding a teacup filled with shifting light. You lifted it without question, bringing it to your lips. It tasted like the moment just before sleep. The quiet surrender, the warmth of being held by nothing and everything. You placed the cup back down, and the bridge continued to form ahead of you, step by step, note by note. On the other side, the landscape changed again, unfolding like a forgotten melody. Great sails of fabric floated overhead, catching invisible breezes that smelled of jasmine and old letters. Beneath them, benches shaped from tree bark and moonlight offered places to sit, to dream, to listen. The shadow creature leapt up onto one and waited, tail curled like a question mark. You sat beside it, and the bench shifted slightly to meet your form, adjusting as if it knew what you needed before you did. Around you, the fabric sails began to sing, not loudly, but low and round, tones so deep they curled through your spine like a river of calm. Their song told stories without words, of skies that healed, of time that could rest, of souls that wandered gently without being lost. You leaned back and closed your eyes, and for a while, there was only the sound and the soft pressure of presence. When you opened them again, the sails had drifted higher, and the path ahead had returned, now lined with soft lanterns, each one glowing with your own breath. As you walked between them, they flickered in rhythm with your thoughts, painting the air in pale amber and rose. You reached out to one, and it drifted into your palm, shrinking into a pearl of warm light. You tucked it into your chest, and it settled there, quiet and still. The shadow creature walked ahead again, turning once to be sure you followed. You did, not out of need, but out of softness. This was a dream you were no longer dreaming. It was dreaming you. The path curved like a sigh, wide and slow, inviting you deeper into a silence that no longer felt empty. The lanterns behind you faded into the mist, their glow lingering faintly on your skin. Ahead, the sky pressed close again, not heavy, but near, like a blanket drawn over your thoughts. You passed through an archway made of wind and found yourself in a garden floating in space. There was no up, no down, only soft directionless drift. The flowers here didn't bloom, they breathed. Their petals opened and closed slowly, in rhythm with something vast and invisible. Some were transparent, holding glimmers of old starlight within their folds. Others glowed with colors not found in the waking world, shades that pulsed with feeling instead of hue. You moved among them without disturbing a single one. They leaned toward you as you passed, as if remembering your scent from some forgotten night. In the center of the garden stood a tree that hummed in a voice made of bells and long-forgotten names. Its branches stretched in every direction, bearing fruit shaped like distant moons. The fruit pulsed faintly, then dimmed when you approached, as if bowing to your presence. Beneath the tree was a shallow pool with no reflection. Instead, it held slow-moving memories, scenes that drifted like ink in water. You knelt beside it and gazed into its surface. A memory rose. You, younger, or perhaps simply different, standing beneath a sky much like this one, holding a paper lantern and whispering something into the night. The shadow creature was there too, smaller, glowing a different color, its form still flickering with uncertainty. The memory faded not because it ended, but because it had served its purpose, reminding you that you had always belonged here. You placed a hand in the pool. The water rippled and turned into soft fabric, folding upward around your fingers, then vanishing into the air. The tree responded with a low chime, and the entire garden exhaled gently, leaves fluttering without breeze. A path of petals formed ahead, each one firm enough to carry your steps but light enough to float. You followed it across the garden's edge, moving slowly, letting each petal pulse beneath you before dissolving behind. The sky opened again, revealing a wide plain of starlight woven into mist. It was not empty. Shapes drifted here, large, slow-moving orbs made of emotion, each one singing in low tones that passed through your chest like soft thunder. One drifted close. It hovered beside you, humming with a tone that felt like peace after weeping. It did not speak. It only stayed long enough for you to feel its presence, then drifted on. The shadow creature had grown again. Taller now, its ears longer, its glow steadier. It met your eyes and blinked once, a gesture that said, without words, you are becoming. You walked together across the starlit plain. No hurry. No destination. Just motion, like the turning of a page that knows it will be read slowly. In the distance, new light began to rise, not a sun, but something quieter, like the thought of morning before it arrives. It spread slowly across the sky, brushing the mist with soft gold and brushing your heart with something you hadn't felt in a long time, the warmth of belonging with no conditions. The light continued to rise, not blinding but gentle, like a memory returning at just the right moment. It did not come from a single point, but from everywhere at once, soft and diffused, like morning reaching out with open arms. The plain of starlit mist grew warmer beneath your feet, taking on the texture of velvet warmed by sunlight. You paused, breathing in the quiet, and the world around you paused as well, as if waiting for your breath to return before continuing. Ahead, a doorway formed, not built, but imagined into being. It shimmered with the same golden quiet that filled the air, shaped from nothing but the soft wish to continue. As you stepped through, the scene shifted again. You were inside a chamber of still air and pale light. The walls pulsed like the inside of a shell, reflecting colors that changed with your thoughts. The ceiling was open to the sky, and through it drifted shapes that felt like dreams forgotten before waking, gentle, vague, kind. In the center of the chamber was a circle of cushions, each one breathing slowly as if alive. You sat upon one, and immediately felt your weight disappear, replaced by calm. The shadow creature lay beside you, now fully luminous, fur like soft night threaded with stars. Around you, the chamber began to sing. Not loudly, more like a murmur heard through a thick quilt. It was the kind of sound that carried stories not told with words but with rest. You closed your eyes, not to sleep, but to listen. The song spoke of skies made from thought, of journeys without maps, of hearts that floated because they were no longer afraid to fall. When you opened your eyes again, the chamber had shifted. The cushions now drifted on water that wasn't water, some slow substance that held you gently but did not soak. You floated effortlessly, and the chamber floated with you. Overhead, the sky turned a soft blush pink, and from it fell snowflakes made of light. They melted before reaching you, releasing warmth instead of cold. You reached up and caught one. It hummed in your palm, then dissolved, leaving behind a small echo that nestled somewhere behind your ribs. A shape formed in the air beside you, a boat made of sleep, tethered not by rope but by trust. It drifted closer until it touched your side, and without needing to rise, you found yourself within it. The shadow creature climbed in after, resting its head on your leg. The boat drifted forward, cutting slowly through the quiet sea of softness. The sky darkened, not to night, but to dream, a deeper shade of comfort, a richer tone of stillness. In the distance, towers of folded light shimmered like the spines of closed books. The boat carried you toward them, unhurried, letting the silence stretch as long as it wished. You passed beneath arches woven from song, each one singing your name in a different color. The world did not rush to impress you. It simply continued, unfolding like a story written in wind. You had no need to ask where you were going. You were already there. The boat rocked gently as it drifted onward, leaving no wake behind it, only a faint shimmer that dissolved into the calm. The towers of folded light grew taller, rising into the sky with quiet grace. They were not made from stone or wood but from thought, each layer shaped by the dreams of those who had passed through this place before. You could feel them, like echoes tucked into the folds of the air, gentle presences, content to remain unseen. The boat brought you to the base of the tallest tower, and as you stepped out, the ground greeted you with a soundless exhale, reshaping itself into soft tiles that glowed under your weight. The tower's entrance opened like a yawn, stretching gently to let you in. Inside, the light shifted constantly, not in brightness but in tone, cycling through moods you could feel on your skin: curiosity, wonder, peace, remembrance. The walls were lined with tapestries that moved on their own, each one depicting stories in color and rhythm rather than image. You watched one as it pulsed through a scene of someone walking through a desert made of moonlight, another floating through a sky woven from threads of rain. Though you had never seen these places before, they felt familiar. The shadow creature padded ahead, pausing at a staircase made of woven silence. You followed, and the steps dissolved behind you as you climbed, ensuring the way was only forward. Each floor of the tower held a room, and each room held a part of yourself you hadn't realized you'd left behind. In one, you found a song you once hummed in a half-dream and had forgotten by morning. It floated in the air like a petal suspended in wind, and as you listened, it sank into your chest and stayed there, no longer forgotten. In another room, you found laughter, not loud, not wild, just the soft kind that comes when nothing needs to be said. It echoed gently around you, and you smiled without meaning to. Another room held rain, warm and slow, falling upward toward a ceiling of stars. The drops passed through you, carrying weight away, not adding it. The higher you climbed, the lighter the air became, not thin, but gentle, as though even gravity had chosen to rest. At the tower's peak, there was no door, only an opening shaped like the pause before a question. You stepped through and emerged onto a platform suspended in the sky, surrounded by a horizon that curved inward, folding the universe around you like a cradle. In the center of the platform stood a chair formed from soft threads of cloud. You sat, and the sky answered. Lights moved above in long, slow arcs, painting trails of meaning across the stars. Some of the lights drifted down and circled you, humming as they spun. They were not trying to tell you something. They were simply glad you were here. The shadow creature climbed onto the arm of the chair, now glowing steadily with soft white light, its shape complete. It rested its head against your shoulder, and the two of you sat in stillness as the sky turned around you. Somewhere below, the tower sang, not loudly, but with certainty. The dream was not ending. It was simply changing shape again, ready to carry you wherever your softness would be most at home. The platform began to move, though you felt no motion. It simply shifted through the air like a thought gliding between moments. The chair cradled you with perfect softness, adjusting with every breath. Around you, the sky grew deeper, not darker, just fuller, as if it were listening more closely. Stars formed patterns that bent and curled, drawing constellations shaped like kindness, like stories never told aloud. Some blinked and drifted down as soft lights that circled your head like slow fireflies. You watched them with the quiet attention of someone who no longer needed answers. The shadow creature blinked slowly, then leaned into your side, its warmth a reminder that you were not alone here. Not that you ever had been. The platform came to rest in a place that looked like a library but smelled like clouds after rain. Shelves arched in curves that had no end, and books floated gently between them. Some opened midair and turned their own pages, revealing not words but memories made of sound, color, and texture. One drifted toward you and paused. You reached out, and it settled in your lap, pages unfolding into a slow dance of glowing ink. It showed you a dream you hadn't had yet, a forest where each leaf was a tiny moon, glowing with sleepy breath. You wandered that forest for what felt like hours in a moment, touching trees that whispered your name in voices of those who had once loved you. When the vision faded, the book folded itself shut and floated away, content. You stood and wandered deeper into the library. Every step brought you into a different memory that hadn't happened yet, future dreams forming patiently, waiting their turn. One showed you a room where music grew like vines, notes curling gently from the ceiling and blooming into flowers made of lullabies. Another showed a mountain made of slow wind, where you climbed by simply thinking upward. None of it felt strange. It all felt like it had been waiting for you to arrive. At the far end of the library, there was a door made of silence. Not empty, but complete. You passed through it and stepped into a wide field beneath a sky made of dawn. The grass sang with every footstep, harmonizing gently with your breath. A gentle wind passed over your shoulders and wrapped around your arms like a shawl made of comfort. In the distance stood a small house with windows that shimmered like dreams still forming. You approached without hurrying, and the house opened its door before you could knock. Inside was everything that ever made you feel safe. A chair like the one you used to fall asleep in as a child, a blanket that knew your shape, the smell of stories told long after bedtime. The walls pulsed with soft light, and the air was filled with the kind of silence that only exists when someone is sitting nearby, quietly understanding. The shadow creature curled at the hearth, and a cup of warm, star-colored tea waited on the table. You took it in your hands and sipped slowly. It tasted like stillness. Outside, the sky whispered through the windows. It wasn't speaking words, it was simply being present, like a friend who sits beside you until the weight in your chest eases. You didn't need to know what came next. This moment was wide enough to hold you completely. Time no longer passed in the house, it simply settled. You sat in the warmth, not counting minutes or moments, only existing in the gentle hush that filled every corner. The chair held you with the memory of every time you had longed to be understood and finally were. The walls breathed slowly, like a lullaby humming just below hearing. Shadows moved gently across the floor, not cast by anything in particular, just drifting like sleepy thoughts. The shadow creature stirred by the hearth, stretching its luminous limbs and padding over to rest beside your feet. It looked up at you with eyes full of distant skies and then closed them again, perfectly at ease. You let your fingers trail over its fur, which felt like twilight woven with peace. Outside the window, the sky had become a moving tapestry, colors sliding across each other like stories retold in slow motion. Shapes drifted through it, soft orbs and gentle clouds, floating homes and thought-birds whose wings whispered as they glided past. You watched, not to understand, but to feel. And what you felt was the hush between dreams, the breath held in the moment before waking, stretched out into something endless. Eventually, the house invited you to rest. Not to sleep, exactly, but to sink. A bed unfolded from the wall, layered in fabrics that shimmered with memory. You lay upon it and felt the layers adjust around you, cradling every part of you with kindness. The ceiling above bloomed with stars, each one gently pulsing in rhythm with your breath. You closed your eyes, not to leave, but to fall deeper in. The bed did not lower you, but rather the world lifted around you, raising you into another sky. It was soft and high and endless, filled with the quiet hum of everything being just as it should. You floated there, still and whole, as voices rose around you. They were not voices you recognized, but they knew you. They sang your name like it was a star in a constellation made just for you. You felt their presence gather like warmth around your shoulders, wrapping you in invisible arms. Somewhere far away and very near, a bell rang, not to call you back, but to remind you that you had never really left. You were part of this place, just as much as the sky or the stars or the boat made of sleep. The shadow creature floated beside you, weightless and aglow, tethered not by fear but by love. You drifted together, side by side, into a space where color and sound no longer needed to be separate. Where everything blended into a single, soft thought: you are safe, you are held, you are home. The dream did not end. It folded gently, like a petal curling closed at dusk, waiting for the next breeze to open it again. The sky unfolded again, not as a scene but as a sensation, a warm hush that moved through your bones like starlight settling into place. You found yourself walking now, though your feet never touched the ground. Below you stretched a meadow made entirely of breath, each blade of grass rising and falling with the rhythm of the dream. Flowers opened as you passed, releasing not scent but music, soft chords that faded into silence as gently as they began. In the distance, hills rolled upward into spirals, then unfolded like paper into staircases of air. You climbed without effort, each step a little softer than the last, as though the sky itself were lifting you. The shadow creature danced ahead of you, leaping through pockets of wind that shimmered with delight. Its movements left trails of color, lazy arcs that hung in the air like ribbons suspended in time. At the top of the hill waited a gate made of nothing at all, just a sense of pause, of entering something quieter. You stepped through, and the world changed shape again. Now you were in a garden where nothing grew from the ground. Instead, the plants drifted midair, their roots trailing beneath them like thoughts in motion. They glowed with soft memory, each one holding something that had once been forgotten but never lost. One flower pulsed with the laughter of a day you hadn't remembered in years. Another glimmered with the feeling of sunlight on your cheek, from a morning that had slipped between dreams. You reached out and touched one, and for a moment, You were there, in that forgotten moment, smiling without knowing why, surrounded by something tender and vast. When you returned to yourself, the garden felt even quieter, as if it had been holding its breath and now released it in a breeze that ruffled your hair like an old friend. A tree floated overhead, its branches curved like wings, and from it hung long strands of light, as if time itself had become something you could touch. The shadow creature climbed the trunk and rested among the leaves, purring a tune that matched the sway of the sky. You lay down beneath the tree, and the world bent gently around you. There was no edge here, no end. Just layers of softness, stacked one upon another like folded dreams. Shapes passed through the clouds above, fish made of wind, boats with sails spun from lullabies, a gentle procession of things that knew how to move without disturbing stillness. You closed your eyes again, and the tree whispered stories through the ground, letting them rise into you like steam from a warm cup. Some stories had no characters, only colors. Others were made of sighs, or pauses between words. Each one rested inside you, a quiet hum, a reminder that even silence had something to say. Time passed without movement, space curved into peace, and everything became simple. A single breath. A moment stretched forever. You did not need to go anywhere. You were already where you were meant to be. The moment stretched like golden honey across the sky, slow and full of warmth. You felt yourself dissolve slightly, not into nothingness, but into everything, into the hush that wrapped the dream around you. The tree above you swayed gently, and with each movement, new dreams drifted down like petals. One settled on your shoulder and unfolded, revealing a memory that had never been yours but felt familiar all the same. A small child danced on a hill beneath a sky made entirely of songs. Each twirl left spirals in the clouds, and their laughter echoed like the chime of tiny bells. You watched with the quiet joy of someone seeing a story long before it is told. The dream dissolved again, and the petals became stars, rising instead of falling, returning to where they'd come from. You rose too, not by standing but by becoming lighter. The ground below shimmered, and the sky above curved like a soft dome of thought. The air here was made of sleep, and you breathed it in until your edges softened. Shapes in the distance called to you, not with voices, but with stillness, inviting you to come closer. You moved toward them, each step a gentle slide through mist and calm. What appeared were towers built from sighs, their walls curved and translucent, their rooftops crowned with pools of light. The buildings rearranged themselves slowly, shifting like memories being remembered more clearly. Inside the nearest tower, an old being waited. Not old in age, but in knowing. It had no face, only layers of woven shimmer, like fabric made from dusk. When you approached, it nodded, and your thoughts grew quieter. It offered no words. Instead, it opened its arms and handed you something small, a folded cloud, cradling a seed. You took it, not asking what it was for, and held it to your chest. The warmth it gave off felt like every time someone had truly listened to you. The being stepped back and dissolved into the tower walls, becoming part of the stillness again. You stepped outside, and the world had shifted once more. Now you were on a shoreline of floating light, waves rolling in with the sound of soft flutes. You walked along the edge, each wave brushing against your ankles like a greeting. The water reflected not the sky but your calm. As you moved, the reflections changed, showing peaceful moments that had slipped through your fingers but now returned. A window open to the breeze, the quiet touch of a friend's hand, the first breath of morning after a long night. Each memory brushed your skin like silk. The shadow creature returned, stepping beside you with its eyes soft and knowing. Together you walked without hurry, without destination. Just being. Above you, the sky sang in soft tones of lavender and rose, shifting gently with your breath. And far ahead, something glowed like a promise not yet spoken. The glow in the distance pulsed with a rhythm so slow it felt like a lullaby stretched across an entire lifetime. You and the shadow creature approached it with quiet hearts, feeling no urgency, only the gentle tug of curiosity wrapped in comfort. The shoreline gave way to a bridge made of woven mist, each step forming just as you placed your foot, dissolving again behind you like a thought let go. Beneath the bridge, clouds flowed like rivers, their current made of forgotten kindnesses, gentle and ever-moving. The glow ahead resolved into a garden suspended in space, held aloft by nothing you could see, as though it had chosen to remain in the air for the sheer pleasure of floating. You stepped into it and were greeted by trees that shimmered in soft gradients, their leaves humming in harmony with the sky. Some trees leaned close as if listening to your dreams, while others tilted upward, offering branches toward constellations that blinked like thoughtful eyes. In the center of the garden sat a pool, its surface still and reflective, but not of light, it showed feelings instead. As you approached, the pool rippled and displayed the calm you carried now, layered with moments of doubt that had gently faded like echoes. You sat by the pool, and the shadow creature curled beside you, its tail trailing patterns in the air. The seed you'd been given pulsed softly in your hands, and as you held it near the water, it opened like a shell revealing a single note, a sound made visible. It floated upward and rang once, quietly, before dissolving into the air like dew in morning sun. Where it had been, something new grew, a small flower, glowing faintly, that mirrored your breath and pulsed in time with your heartbeat. You planted it beside the pool without needing to dig. The soil of the floating garden accepted it instantly, the roots weaving themselves into the fabric of this place. Around you, the garden sighed with delight, and petals drifted down like snowfall slowed to a crawl. The tree closest to you lit up with tiny lanterns shaped like memories, and each one flickered with warmth. You touched one and felt a soft wave of belonging. The stars above began to hum, not loud, but clearly, like a choir far away that knew you by name. Their voices braided through the trees, the clouds, the light. The whole world was singing now, not in words, but in tones that matched your stillness. You lay back and watched the sky sing in color. Hues you couldn't name flowed from horizon to horizon, blending into one another like thoughts in the middle of a dream. The shadow creature nuzzled close, its warmth familiar and constant. You were not asleep, and yet you were deeper than dreams. You were not awake, and yet you were more present than ever. You existed in that gentle between space, where time softened and everything knew how to breathe in silence. The garden would remain, you understood. This place would not fade when you left. It would float forever in a sky made of rest, and your flower would bloom again each time someone needed it. The garden's light softened further, folding into a gentle twilight that wrapped around you like a warm shawl. The flower you had planted pulsed steadily, a quiet heartbeat in the stillness of this floating world. The shadow creature rested its head on your lap, its soft glow matching the calm that filled your chest. Above, the stars drifted in slow circles, their song dimming to a whisper but never truly fading. You rose slowly, feeling the ground beneath you shift seamlessly into a smooth path of moonlight. It stretched out before you, curving through the sky like a river made of light and quiet. You followed it without haste, your breath matching the rhythm of the path beneath your feet. Along the way, the air shimmered with small lights that flickered like fireflies, each one carrying a fragment of a forgotten dream. They danced around you, playful but gentle, weaving in and out like soft laughter caught in the breeze. The shadow creature trotted beside you, tail swaying in time with the light's dance. The path led you to a bridge woven from strands of music, delicate and strong all at once. You stepped onto it, feeling the gentle vibration beneath your feet as notes rose and fell in waves of color. The bridge arched over a vast expanse of quiet sky, dotted with floating islands of memory, places shaped from feelings rather than things. You looked down and saw your reflection, not in water, but in a pool of pure stillness. It showed you as you were now, calm, held, and moving softly through the dream. Across the bridge, a doorway formed from threads of dawnlight, inviting and warm. You stepped through and found yourself in a room filled with soft cushions and blankets, walls glowing with the colors of early morning. The air smelled of fresh rain and open windows. The shadow creature curled beside the doorway, its eyes bright with contentment. You sank into the cushions, feeling their softness fold around you like a gentle embrace. Outside, the sky hummed quietly, a lullaby sung without words. You closed your eyes and let yourself drift, deeper and softer into the space between dreams and waking. Time slowed until it felt like it didn't exist at all, replaced only by the steady rhythm of breath and the quiet song of the sky. You were safe here. You were held. You were home. You rested in the room of soft cushions, the colors around you pulsing gently in time with your heartbeat. The scent of rain and open windows filled the air, weaving itself into your breath and settling deep inside your chest. Outside, the sky shifted softly, the gentle hum of the lullaby rising and falling like waves on a quiet shore. The shadow creature lay beside you, its warmth steady and sure, a constant presence that needed no words. Your thoughts slowed until they were only whispers, sliding gently over the edges of sleep without slipping entirely away. Somewhere in the distance, a bell chimed, clear and slow, its sound wrapping around you like a ribbon of light. The cushions beneath you seemed to breathe in response, rising and falling in a rhythm that matched the bell's toll. You reached out a hand and let your fingers brush over the fabric, which shimmered faintly, alive with soft memory. The room began to dissolve. Not suddenly, but like mist fading under morning sun. The cushions floated away, the walls faded into light, and the floor became air. You found yourself drifting upward, carried on a current of quiet, gentle, and sure. The shadow creature floated beside you, its form glowing softly in the dawnlight. Together you moved through layers of color that swirled and blended, shifting like slow waves. Each you carried a feeling, peace, longing, joy, rest. woven together in a tapestry that stretched beyond the edges of sight. You were a part of it now, not separate but held within the dream's soft heart. The current carried you toward a horizon that gleamed with promise, a place where light and shadow intertwined in gentle harmony. As you approached, the world softened even further, folding inward like a flower closing at dusk. You drifted down into a valley cradled by hills that glowed faintly with the light of 1,000 quiet moments. A river of light ran through it, slow and steady, its surface smooth as glass. You followed its path with your eyes, feeling the calm it spread like a warm hand on your shoulder. The shadow creature curled at your side, watching the river's flow with steady eyes. The valley seemed endless but safe, a place where time could rest and dreams could breathe freely. You lay back on the soft grass, letting the gentle warmth of the light river seep into you. The stars above flickered softly, their song a lullaby that hummed just beneath hearing. You closed your eyes, letting the dream carry you deeper, further into stillness and peace. The river of light whispered softly as it wound through the valley, carrying with it stories too gentle for words. You listened without needing to understand, letting the warmth of the flowing light seep deeper into your being. The grass beneath you was soft as velvet, cradling you in a stillness that felt like home. Above, the stars pulsed faintly, their lullaby wrapping around the valley like a tender breath. The shadow creature lay beside you, its form a soft glow against the quiet dark. It lifted its head and nuzzled your hand, a silent promise that you were safe, always. The sky above began to shift again, colors flowing slowly like melted glass. Pale golds melting into soft blues, hints of lavender and rose blending seamlessly. Shapes drifted across the horizon, boats made of light, birds with feathers like whispers, and clouds that moved like gentle thoughts. You watched them with eyes half closed, feeling the edges of the dream blur into something softer. The river widened into a calm lake, its surface smooth and still, reflecting the sky's shifting colors like a living mirror. You stood and walked to the water's edge, feeling the coolness lap gently at your feet. In the distance, a small boat floated silently, its sails catching the softest breeze. The shadow creature followed, stepping lightly beside you. Without hesitation, you climbed into the boat. It rocked gently, carrying you across the lake with no rush, no destination, only the soft current of calm. The sky above darkened into a deep indigo, dotted with stars that shimmered like tiny flames. The boat moved slowly, passing beneath arches of woven light that sang softly as you passed. You closed your eyes, feeling the gentle motion rocking you closer to sleep. Around you, the world seemed to breathe in rhythm with your own breath, slow, steady, peaceful. The shadow creature curled at your side, its warmth a quiet anchor in the shifting dream. The lake stretched endlessly before you, a vast sea of stillness and light. And as the boat drifted onward, you felt yourself falling deeper, softer, into a sleep that held no fear, only the promise of gentle dreams and quiet rest. The boat carried you onward through the endless lake of stillness, its movement barely more than a breath upon the water. The stars above shimmered gently, their light weaving a tapestry of soft silver threads across the dark sky. Around you, the silence was complete but never heavy, filled instead with the quiet hum of peace settling into every corner of your being. The shadow creature lay beside you, its glowing eyes closing slowly as if drifting alongside your own thoughts. The sails caught a faint breeze made not of wind but of whispered wishes, carrying you forward without hurry. As the boat glided beneath a bridge made of moonlight, you noticed that the arch above was etched with symbols that seemed to pulse with quiet meaning. You reached out a hand, and the air hummed softly in response. The bridge led to a small island bathed in pale blue light. As you stepped ashore, the ground beneath your feet felt like velvet, cool and soothing. The island was quiet, wrapped in the soft folds of twilight, and you wandered slowly, taking in the gentle curve of the hills and the faint scent of jasmine and rain. At the center of the island stood a circle of ancient stones, their surfaces smooth and glowing faintly with inner light. You stepped into the circle, feeling the calm deepen around you. The stones hummed in a language without words, speaking directly to your heart. You closed your eyes and let the sounds wash over you, a slow song of belonging and rest. When you opened them again, the stars above had shifted into new patterns, shimmering with the promise of dreams yet to come. The shadow creature rose and stretched, its fur sparkling softly as it looked at you with steady, loving eyes. Together, you sat in the circle, the quiet wrapping around you like a warm embrace. The world outside the dream faded further, replaced by the vast peace of this moment. Time no longer mattered. Only the soft pulse of breath and the gentle song of the sky. You felt yourself sinking deeper into stillness, into the soft cradle of sleep, carried by the quiet music of the stars. And there, in that perfect calm, the dream held you close, promising rest, peace, and gentle awakening when the time was right. The circle of stones hummed softly beneath you, their light pulsing in time with your steady breath. The air was thick with quiet warmth, a gentle promise whispered on currents you could feel but not see. The shadow creature curled beside you, its presence a soft anchor in the vastness of the dream. Above, the stars shifted gently, tracing new paths in the sky, paths woven from kindness, memory, and hope. You felt yourself dissolve into the stillness, not as loss but as fullness, becoming part of the vast, gentle pulse of the world around you. Time folded inward until it was only a soft ripple, the space between moments stretched wide with peace. The island, the boat, the sky, they all merged into a single breath held softly in the arms of the dream. You rested there, cradled by endless calm, knowing that this place would wait for you whenever you needed to return. When your eyelids grew heavy and the final threads of wakefulness slipped away, the dream sang one last lullaby. A song made of colors you could not name, of whispers folded into silence. It wrapped around you like a soft shawl, carrying you gently into rest. You were safe. You were held. You were home.